How's it going, guys? Graham, Jason Matthews here, and if you're listening to this on Sunday, August 2nd, that means we are only 3 weeks away from WWE SummerSlam 2015. Can't wait to be there in person, but the entire road to SummerSlam has been devoted right here on WrestleRant to reviewing old installments of the show. So yesterday I broke down SummerSlam 2001, and if you're wondering where my review of SummerSlam 2002 is, it's because I already did it. I reviewed it last year on the channel. You can go back and search it up on YouTube in the WrestleRant playlist. It is episode 135 if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to go listen to my review of SummerSlam 2002 before you listen to this one, feel free. But SummerSlam 2003, it was a good show, not a great show. Certainly not as good as SummerSlam 2002. That was probably one of, if not the greatest installment of SummerSlam ever. Just a stacked card from top to bottom with awesome main event matches and awesome undercard. A near perfect show. So it's going to be hard to top that one, but this was still decent for what it was, and I'll give my final thoughts on it by the end of this review. Kicking off the show, though, for the World Tag Team titles, La Resistance, Rene Dupree and Sylvain Grenier defending the World Tag Team titles against the Dudley Boyz, with Spike Dudley in their corner as well. This was shortly removed from when La Resistance had sided with Rob Conway after they blindsided the Dudley Boyz. He dressed up as a part of the Marine Force or something like that, some part of the military. In the audience, they tricked the Dudley Boyz into thinking he was part of the military, he was a part of the audience, only to turn on them. And he wouldn't play a part in this match until the very end. I'll get to that in a second. But the match itself was good. I talked about, maybe it was in my Judgment Day reviews, I want to say. Maybe in Backlash, I want to say Judgment Day. That La Resistance is a tag team that doesn't really get enough credit, in my opinion. They're not one of the greatest tag teams of all time, especially next to the Dudley Boyz, their opponents in this match. But they were a good tag team, especially given how young they were and how good they were in the ring, and their characters, they just got them down pat, and they got awesome heat from the audience. It's your typical foreigner gimmick, I understand that, but for the matches they had with the teams they rivaled with, I thought they deserved more credit than they often get. A tag team that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, but still a good match to kick off the show, and in the end, the Dudley Boyz would come close to picking up the win. I think they hit the 3D, and one of the competitors was closing into the victory when Rob Conway, dressed as a cameraman at ringside, knocked, I think, I don't know which one it was. I don't know if it was Bubba Ray or Devon, but he knocked one of them out. I think it was Devon, because then they got the cover quickly, and it was over. So that was a little weird. He got hit with a camera, and that gave him the win. But they did cheat to win. They talked about that after the match when Jonathan Coachman had interviewed Bubba Ray Dudley, saying, you got to admit, it's pretty clever. They said they were going to do anything that it took to retain their titles. That's exactly what they did tonight. And the Dudley Boyz did not give up. They said, we respect that. They're assholes. If they hate the United States, then they suck. But we too are going to do anything it takes to regain the gold. So a good match to kick off the show. Nothing too phenomenal, but a good tag team title. A good tag team title bout though. After that, we had The Undertaker taking on A-Train, Albert, Prince Albert, Lord Tensai, whatever the hell you want to call him. A decent match. I wasn't really looking forward to this match on paper. It's Undertaker and A-Train. It always really felt like, and I don't know I think I talked about this in one of my earlier SummerSlam reviews a couple of weeks ago, in regards to how The Undertaker was kind of like the John Cena, 10, 20 years ago. And not an exact replica of John Cena, but by that I mean, they always had something set up for The Undertaker. They didn't really have any long-term plans, for the most part, for most people. But with The Undertaker, they always had to have an opponent for. It was usually a one-and-done type deal, whether you go right down the line, Giant Gonzalez, The Undertaker, A-Train, Test. Look at all of his SummerSlam opponents from the early years, and almost all of them are just one-and-done type deals, never really amounted to anything. A-Train was kind of similar in that respect. They had history, dating back from WrestleMania of that year in the handicap match. I get that. That kind of added to the matchup a little bit. They didn't really talk about that, but still. It was a fine match. They made the most of what they were given. Undertaker ultimately went over. And I was kind of more interested in the story that took place going into the match and also after the match too, as opposed to the match itself. Sable was in the corner of A-Train, and she tried to cost Undertaker the win. She couldn't do it. Undertaker ultimately won, like I mentioned. But Sable, after the match, was going to slap Undertaker or something like that. I believe she hit him, and then he grabbed her by the throat. And before he could do anything, out comes Stephanie McMahon, who had gotten injured or was taken off TV shortly before this, comes out and spears Sable. She starts attacking her, and then A-Train pulls her out of the ring, I'm sure leading to some sort of intergender tag team match. I believe it was at Unforgiven. They did the I Quit match. Maybe it was No Mercy. I think it was No Mercy between Stephanie and Vince. That kind of wrote Stephanie off TV for years. So I don't know exactly where that was heading, but it wasn't a terrible match. It just wasn't really my cup of tea personally. After that, we had Shane McMahon taking on Eric Bischoff in what later turned into a Falls Count Anywhere match. In the match, they recapped it nicely because I knew nothing about this feud for the most part, but the video package was really did an effective job of kind of filling me in, kind of filling the blanks and the background of this bout that kind of included Eric Bischoff dissing Shane's mom, Linda, of course, and spreading lies that he slept with her, all this other kind of stuff. But in the weeks before that, Shane had wanted to get his hands on Kane, and so I think Vince booked a match between Bischoff and Kane, and then it was later revealed after Bischoff won via countout, Vince said, or no, Stone Cold, I'm sorry, he was the co-GM at that time, not Vince. Stone Cold had said that the winner of that match, which he did not tell him before that, would have to face Shane at the pay-per-view. So Eric, got some help. Christian, who did not have a match on the show, is kind of upset about that backstage, although he was the Intercontinental Champion. And Eric Bischoff said, no, don't worry about it. I got some backup. So, of course, halfway during the matchup when Shane McMahon was in control, it was a standard singles match to kick it off. But halfway during the match, Jonathan Coachman, of all people, who really wasn't a prominent figure on WWE at that time. This was before he entered that Rumble, the Rumble the one year. Started getting involved in all these storylines. He was the heel commentator of Raw. This was before any of that. So this was kind of like the coming out party, so to speak, for Jonathan Coachman. So halfway during the match, he would attack Shane McMahon. The referee's like, ring the bell. And Eric was like, no, I'm turning this into a no disqualification Falls Count Anywhere match right here, right now. So, of course, Jonathan Coachman helps him out a little bit. They start teaming up on Shane 2-1. And then out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin, whose storyline at that time was that he could not attack because Jonathan Coachman worked for Eric, that Stone Cold could not touch Eric unless he was physically provoked. So he couldn't touch Jonathan Coachman either because he worked for Eric. So excuse me. Jonathan Coachman was like, oh, you can't touch me, ha 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 ha. We're just going to continue beating up on Shane because you can't do anything about it. And then Shane pushes Jonathan Coachman into Stone Cold, which quote-unquote physically provokes him. So then he stuns Jonathan Coachman, and Shane gets the better of Eric Bischoff, just beats the living shit out of him. I think he does... Oh, man, I forgot what he did. I think he got hit with a Stone Cold Stunner or something like that. And then Shane, after Stone Cold walks out, because Shane pushes Eric into the Stone Cold Stunner, into Stone Cold, which, quote-unquote, again, it physically provokes him. Hits his stunner, he walks out. Shane, he goes to the 1-2-3, pulls up his shoulders, and it pulls Eric over to the commentating table, the Spanish announce table. Once again, a victim in all of this is the victim of a high-flying elbow from Shane McMahon right through the table. A top rope elbow, so to speak, the elbow that Shane was famous for. Hits that through the table, and the 1-2-3 win for Shane McMahon, and as I said, Falls Count Anywhere, so he could pick up the win on the outside. So a great little twist there, a fun little match. I mean, for a match that wasn't really supposed to be anything close to a match, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it, and I thought they kind of held up there, ended the bargain well. Both guys, both Shane and Eric, and I've praised Shane McMahon relentlessly in the past here on the show. If this wasn't his third match at SummerSlam, because I know, like I talked about in my SummerSlam 01 review, it might have been 2000, whatever pay-per-view it was, between him and Blackman, the hardcore title match where he fell off the top. Just surreal. But I feel like he had another match at SummerSlam. I mean, I've watched them all already, like all the ones preceding this event. So maybe I'm just forgetting. I don't remember. Just kind of slips my mind. But still, another great showing from Shane McMahon on pay-per-view. And once again, among the highlights on this show. So after that, we had a fatal four-way match for the United States Championship. Eddie Guerrero defending against Chris Benoit, Rhino and Tajiri. The only real build-up that we got a glimpse of before this match was a brief video package or a brief recap of what happened on SmackDown days before, where Eddie Guerrero, had laid out all of his opponents for the match during a tag team match on SmackDown. He laid out his partner, whoever that was, I forgot who it was, and his opponents, Benoit and Tajiri. So they were all laid out. Eddie Guerrero was in the driver's seat going into this match, and he would ultimately win, too. A pretty standard four-way, though. I enjoyed it. And this was back when the mid-card division on SmackDown was stacked. You had Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Think about that for a second. Two guys that would co-headline WrestleMania the following year in world title matches. Not even a year, but like mere months before they would go on to WrestleMania to win world championships. How crazy is that? Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. You also had Rhino in there, who was always a great mid-card guy, and Tajiri too. Always deserved more, in my opinion, but another great in-ring talent. So you get a pretty good match, nothing too special, but Eddie Guerrero in the end would pick up the scraps, hit the frog splash, and retain his U.S. Championship. After that, we move right along to the WWE title match between Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. Now, I was really looking forward to this match because after a lot of good build from WrestleMania, Kurt Angle, I'm not going to recap the entire storyline for you, but in a nutshell, Angle, who had lost the WWE title to a babyface Brock Lesnar, a heel Angle lost the title to a babyface Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania that year. And then after that, Angle had to take time off due to surgery, came back, won the title in a triple threat of Vengeance in June or July, I think it was, leading to this match on pay-per-view. And right before this, Brock Lesnar turned heel by aligning with Mr. McMahon. So he turned heel, Angle's babyface, and that kind of what was led us to this point. So like I said, I was looking forward to this match because I have seen WrestleMania 19 before. I have seen the match between Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar before, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really underrated match. It's not I don't know if I would call it one of the greatest matches of all time. I don't know, I forgot where I ranked it, or John and I ranked it in our greatest WrestleMania main events of all time. I think we ranked it probably above 15 or so. I'm sure we did. Maybe in the top 10. I don't recall exactly. It's up on Next Era Wrestling Cheap Plug if you want to check that out. But that was a great match. I don't think it gets enough credit. That whole WrestleMania, in my opinion, does not get enough credit. I think that was a really good show. And so, of course, logically, I'm looking forward to this match to a similar rematch. And while it was a good match, it was nowhere near on the level of their previous match, of the initial installment of the series. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I thought it was a good match, and they just, it's a 20-minute match, but they spent most of that time just kind of using rest holds. It was pretty basic for the most part. Kurt Angle hits an angle slam at one point. People don't take the near fall seriously at all. It wasn't like a 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, he kicked out. People were like, oh, angle slam, 1, 2, oh, cool, he kicked out. They didn't really care. It's not a reflection on the feud. It's rather because maybe just the angle slam by that point, fans had been so desensitized to knowing it would not lead to the win. I'm not really sure, but there weren't many near falls, there weren't many counters or anything like that. Mr. McMahon at one point would get involved. When the referee was down and out, Brock Lesnar would tap out to the ankle lock, but because the referee wasn't looking, it didn't really matter. But out comes Vince. He attacks Kurt Angle, and ultimately, Vince gets his at ringside. He just kind of gets gotten out of the equation. He's not a part of the finish at the end. I think Angle does something to him. I forgot exactly, but so Mr. McMahon's out of the equation. In the meantime, I think Lesnar hits an F5, Angle kicks out, then he locks in the ankle lock and he taps out. I don't know if I was a fan of that finish. I believe it was the first time in WWE that Brock Lesnar had submitted, and I think one of the only times that he's ever tapped out. I think the only guy that he's ever tapped out to is Kurt Angle. He might have tapped out to Angle maybe one other time after this, but other than that, though, I don't think he's ever submitted in WWE. I mean, it's not like he's tapping out to a Yoshitatsu or a Tajiri or something like that, or a I don't know, a freaking Rey Mysterio, but, Angle's one of the greatest of all time. But I don't know, I think I would have protected Lesnar a little bit more, considering also he was not the champion here. He was a challenger. I mean, I know he would get a rematch a couple weeks later in a great Iron Man match that was a lot better than this, in my opinion, on SmackDown. I thoroughly enjoyed that match. This was kind of like not the worst of the three, in my opinion. I thought the WrestleMania match was exceptional, and the Iron Man match was also very, very good and told a great story. This match was kind of like the odd one out. It had a lot of good build, don't get me wrong, just the match, the execution of it, not even the involvement from Vince. I don't know, just the way that it was booked out. The crowd, you could tell, was kind of not flat for it, but they weren't really hanging on every near fall, so it was kind of a little weird. Maybe it's just the dynamic of Lesnar as the heel and Angle as the babyface. I'm not really sure, but then again, their Iron Man match where they would be in the same roles a couple weeks later on SmackDown was a lot of people were hot for that match in the crowd that night, so I'm not really sure. But still, not a terrible match. This didn't really live up to my lofty expectations. But in the end, though, Kurt Angle forces Lesnar to tap out and is the new WWE champion. Or not exactly. He is not the new WWE champion. He retained the WWE title, rather. So after that, we had Kane versus Rob Van Dam, kind of stemming from their split a couple weeks before this, or a couple months before this, when Kane unmasked. He would attack Rob Van Dam, and setting up a rematch for SummerSlam. So the no-holds-barred stipulation, much like with Shane and Eric, was added at the last minute. I mean, granted, it made sense in the context of the previous match between Eric and Shane, because Eric was the Raw general manager. In this case, it was basically Howard, when he was making the introduction for the match, he said, "I have just been informed the match is now a no-holds-barred match." So I think with Rock and Austin, they didn't make it a no disqualification match in the main event of WrestleMania at the moment of the match. I'm pretty sure they made it a no DQ match maybe earlier that night, which isn't that much better. I get that, but I think in this case, there wasn't really any storyline reasoning for it. Unless I missed something, I'm not really sure. I don't think so, but the match was made no disqualification at the very last minute. It didn't really help it at all. I thought it was a good match. It wasn't really anything about it that made it stand out. You would never really even be able to tell that it was a hardcore match. They didn't really go too much to the extreme. It was all about building up Kane and giving him a clean win after he had unmasked, and they're kind of on this monster roll with him. So I wasn't really surprised that he ended up going over here. It was a good match, nothing great, and I think it was kind of like designed to bring down the crowd after the WWE title match. Wasn't that big of a that much of a task because the crowd wasn't red hot for that previous match. But I was kind of wondering why this match went on after the WWE title match. I'm thinking, why didn't that one go on after this one? But I guess, like I said, it was kind of designed to bring the crowd down. So we get to the main event, the Elimination Chamber match for the World Heavyweight Championship. You had the defending champion Triple H, Chris Jericho, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, and Goldberg. So all 6 guys vying for the opportunity to capture the prestigious prize known as the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, in all the chamber matches I've seen, if I haven't seen all of them, I've seen almost all of them. I watched the first one at Survivor Series 2002, one of, if not my favorite chamber match of all time. That was just phenomenal, the story it told. So therefore, it kind of got my hopes up, and I'm sure a lot of other people's hopes up for this match because that first one was so freaking great. There was that one, this one. I don't think there was one in 2004. Maybe there was, I don't remember exactly. I saw the one in 2005 where Triple H had regained the title. I'm trying to think of... Maybe there was one... Oh, the one with John Cena in 2006, the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view also. I saw that one too. So I'm thinking I've seen them all. I think I've seen every Elimination Chamber match, I believe, to my knowledge. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway. Of all the chamber matches that I've seen, the bottom line is this. Of all the chamber matches I've seen, this was probably one of, if not the worst. It was very poorly planned. I mean, all the contestants made sense. That's kind of the first thing to me that's like, oh, do you have 6 people that kind of make sense that deserve a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, or just 6 people randomly thrown together? Like in recent years, they would just have qualifying matches, which, again, makes sense from a storyline standpoint, but the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, or the match rather, should be saved for when 6 competitors all have a beef and are vying, for or without, it doesn't really matter, for a championship. And in this case, it made sense. Triple H had issues with pretty much all of these men. Jericho and Goldberg, I believe, had a match at Vengeance that same year, or on pay-per-view that same year, maybe at Bad Blood, so they had that going for them. Goldberg was also kind of going after the World Heavyweight Championship. Orton was the Evolution stablemate of Triple H, who was put in this match to ensure that Triple H came out still the World Heavyweight Champion. Kevin Nash had been feuding with Triple H before this, and Shawn Michaels was kind of a part of that feud as well. So all 6 guys had issues with one another leading to this match inside the chamber at SummerSlam for the world title. But like I said, the execution of it was very poor. There was nothing really special about it. The only over-the-top moment, other than Goldberg fucking killing everybody, was, I guess, kind of included in that when he speared Chris Jericho through the chamber pod, which was an awesome sight. And it's gone down in the highlight reel of great chamber moments, or great spear moments, too. Among the greatest spears of all time. That was great. But other than that, though, there weren't really many highlights in this match. Everyone kind of got out of their pod, and I think Nash was focusing on Jericho, and out of nowhere, he got hit with the sweet chin music. Jericho rolls him up. Out goes Nash, and Nash is the first one gone. He attacks people when he's gone. On his way out, he attacks a few people. So then Goldberg comes in. I believe he's the last one. He's the last entrant. So he comes in. Like I said, he fucking kills everybody in sight. He pins Orton. He's gone. Pins Shawn Michaels. He's gone. Pins Jericho. He's gone. So it comes down to Triple H and Goldberg. And I know I'm kind of fast-tracking here, but like I said, there really was not anything like remotely memorable from most of this match. I mean, there was some good wrestling with like HBK and Jericho to kick it off, like kind of like stemming off the WrestleMania 19 feud from that year. But other than that, though, there weren't really many standout moments. But anyway, so we get to the end. Goldberg, after killing everybody in sight, sets his sights on Triple H, looking to eliminate him. So he goes after him for a little bit. They don't have much of an interaction before Goldberg sets up the spear. And before he can hit it, Triple H sidesteps him, hits him with the sledgehammer, which he was given to by Ric Flair through the chain of the Elimination Chamber. Triple H pins him, 1, 2, 3, and it's over. So a fort finish, and people are really hot to see Goldberg. A lot of Goldberg chants. This was his time to win that title. Now, I understand they gave the belt to him the following month at Unforgiven, but it was not the same. They waited too long. He didn't have a bad reign as world champion. It was pretty decent. It lasted a few months, I believe like 3 months or so. He didn't have bad matches. He was a good world champion, but the moment of him capturing that World Heavyweight Championship should have come on this show. People were hot for him. It also, I know it's a complete night and day comparison, but it reminds me of Night of Champions back in 2011 when Beth Phoenix was in her hometown. I know she's a heel, but who the fuck cares, They were going to cheer her anyway. Where she had lost that Divas title match to Kelly Kelly for the second consecutive pay-per-view. When she finally won it the following month at Hell in a Cell, nobody gave a shit because she should have won it on the previous pay-per-view. I'm glad she won, but it should have happened last time. That was kind of the similar feeling that people had with Goldberg when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. And the finish was so fucking dumb. Goldberg was a monster. Like I said, he eliminated everybody with the exception of Kevin Nash. He eliminated 3 people in one match, which must be a record of some sort. And maybe there's somebody else that eliminated 3 people or 4. I'm not really sure. But Goldberg took out 3 different people in the same match. It's nuts. It was awe-inspiring, so to speak. And then all it takes is a fucking sledgehammer shot to put him out, much like Sting this past year at WrestleMania, which was equally embarrassing. But one sledgehammer shot, it's done. Triple H retains the world title. And then they not bury him, I hate to use that word, but then they just brutally attack him after the match. All of Evolution. Orton comes back out, Flair comes in, they just beat the shit out of Goldberg, they tie him up to the Elimination Chamber structure, and that's it. That's how they go off the show. It's like, really? I mean, that's it? Okay. I mean, like I said, people were happy to see him win the title the following month at Unforgiven, but it should have happened on the show. People were ready for it. They waited too long, and as the old phrase goes, they should have struck when the iron was hot, and the iron was hot. And I mean, it was red hot with Goldberg on the show, but they fucked it up when they had Triple H win, so that was kind of in a nutshell, what Triple H's reign of terror, so to speak, as some people call it, on Raw was from 2002 to 2005. But kind of closed out a little bit of a lackluster pay-per-view. There really wasn't any standout matches. Angle and Lesnar was good. As they mentioned, their other matches were a lot better. This is kind of like a lesser of the 3. Still a good match. I would say the best match of the night, oddly enough, was Shane and Eric Bischoff. You would hear that and think I was crazy, but if you watch the show like I did, and you would know that was probably the best match in the entire show. The Elimination Chamber match sucked. I don't know who booked that piece of shit, but it was easily one of the worst chamber matches I've ever seen. That was pretty bad, in a very bad way of going off the show. Kane and RVD, fine for what it was. A fine U.S. title match. Undertaker and A-Train rather. Meh. And the tag team title match was good, but no match that really set this pay-per-view out from anything else, from all the other installments, and especially a step down. I mean, it would have been a bad show or a lackluster show regardless, but especially coming off of the 3 past awesome SummerSlam shows, 2000, 2001, and especially 2002. As I mentioned before, easily among the greatest installments in SummerSlam history. So there was no topping that. So would I recommend you watch a show? Not really. I'm sure there definitely are. I mean, from what I've seen so far, a lot better SummerSlam shows. Like I said, 2000, 01, 02, 1992, the original SummerSlam is fun. So go check out all those other SummerSlams before you watch this one. Unless you're a huge Ruthless Aggression fan. I mean, it wasn't a terrible show, just kind of a little bit disappointing, especially the main event. It definitely could have been improved upon. But I look forward to watching SummerSlam 2004, which my review of should be up on Tuesday. So here's the dilemma. As I'm recording this on Friday, but I'll be camping. I'll be pretty busy. I'll be pretty busy for the weekend on Friday tonight, Saturday, and Sunday. And then from Sunday night, after I get home from an indie show in Massachusetts, I will be camping there in the Massachusetts area from Sunday night to mid-Tuesday. So I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to review the show, much less even watch it. So I don't know, and we've kind of run out of spaces, like my freebie days to kind of give away. So if it's not up on Tuesday, it might be up like later on in the week, or I might put out 2 reviews in one day, because we're on track right now. If I put out a review a day, 04 on Tuesday, 05 and 06 next weekend, followed by 07 on the Tuesday, 2009 to 2010 the following weekend, then 2012 or something along those lines. I know for a fact that if I put out a WrestleRant video every Tuesday, every Saturday, and every Sunday up until SummerSlam Sunday 3 weeks from now, that we should be good. That we should be set and on track for delivering a SummerSlam review every week until then. But still, hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these WrestleRant reviews as much as I am doing them and watching these pay-per-views moreover than anything else. And it's definitely get me in the SummerSlam mood in just 3 more weeks where I will be in the Barclays Center for that amazing show. So I can't wait for that. But in the meantime, and in between time, be sure to follow me on the Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Also, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. And lastly, visit my website, nextairwrestling.net. Probably won't be doing it on Monday because, like I said, I will be away camping. But typically, there is live coverage of Monday Night Raw on the website every single Monday. And, of course, the occasional pay-per-views as well. Not SummerSlam, though, because I will be, as I mentioned, in the building live for that show. So, guys, with all that being said, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.